I'm going to be spending about 10 minutes running through the keywording process, and I've just picked one image from the Facebook group that Sovan uploaded. Thank you for that. This image here. I'm going to talk you through my process, and as part of that, raise a few of the considerations that you might be interested in knowing about if you do or plan to submit to stock photo libraries. So the four key things that I would like to go over with you in this demonstration are the brief, the importance of the brief information about what we're keywording. The second thing is caption writing and the format that we use for that. The third thing is keywords, obviously very important. And the fourth thing is additional metadata fields. And all of those four things really do tie in together, and there are some parallels to be made as part of this process. So just to go into the idea of the brief and the information about the image, I was sent this image, and Sovan had put in the post in Facebook that this was taken at the Royal Horticultural Halls. So knowing that, I can use that information to help guide me in the keywording process. But let's say I was working for a client who just sent me, 1,000 images or a few hundred images to keyword, and I didn't have any information at all. If they were studio shots of, a bowl of cereal and a glass of orange juice on a table, then that's fine. I can see what it is, and I'm quite confident that I can keyword those without any extra help. If I'm looking at something like this, which is more editorial, or there's an element of culture or some kind of social activity or a specific location involved that I feel I need to know more about, the first thing I would need to do is go back to the photographer and ask them for information. So typically the process starts with me seeing what I've been sent, or for you, if you're keywording for yourself, knowing what it is you're keywording today, where you were at the time, when it was, what was going on, was it a specific event at a specific time of year or a specific decade that's relevant, and having all of that in mind when you start keywording. So really kind of setting yourself up for success and accuracy within your data. So often the content will come to me. It could be images, it could be video, and it will come either with some information or not with information. If I find there's no information, then I'll have a chat with the photographer or ask them to just shoot me an email, with some background. Sometimes the image reference, which this one is just a kind of generic one here that I've made up, but Sovan's image may actually be called something meaningful. It may actually say, it could actually be, Jewish wedding, Royal Horticultural Halls in London, 1, and then it could be number 2, number 3, number 4. So if that image reference is given to me and it's meaningful and it has helpful information, then again I can use that to inform the keywording. In this particular case, it didn't. I didn't have specific information, so I've actually approached the keywording process for this recording in a fairly generic way. And hopefully that will raise some interesting and insightful questions for you as well. So the first thing is setting yourself up for what it is you're keywording and knowing exactly what you're looking at and what the most relevant and significant things will be in there. The fields that I use mostly when keywording, and just to let you know, this keywording tool is an offline tool which I often use for independent photographers who want to submit to different picture libraries. It's called Media Pro. It's made by Phase One. It's a little bit like Lightroom or Bridge. And I can pull image files or videos into Media Pro, and I can set up all the fields that I need for different libraries, and then when I finish keywording, I can produce an Excel spreadsheet which I either send back to the photographer for them to use however they want. They might want to have the metadata sent to their own portfolio website, or they might want to send it off to one picture library or 2 or 3 picture libraries. So the Excel spreadsheet that gets made at the end is something that is easily adaptable depending on what the photographer wants to do with the content and how it's going to be sold. The demonstration will now look at the keywording process, but don't worry about trying to remember what I'm saying, because I will provide the Excel spreadsheet for all of the 15 images that you kindly sent to me at the end. So you will have a record of how I've captioned and keyworded all of those images, and hopefully that will be useful to you. So the second thing I wanted to look at after the image reference was caption writing, and the caption is usually a fairly standard format across all the different libraries. Some of the libraries have a character limit, and we need to know that up front again, just like the information that comes to me from the original source. The information that is required by each library needs to be known up front. So if there's a character limit on caption, I need to make my clients aware of that, and I need to implement that as part of the process. A caption should also have a nice, succinct, accurate format. The style should be very simple. It should be quite literal. It shouldn't have, subjective or interpretive element to it. It should be quite literal, and also the focus of the image, the key focus, the primary points of the image should be covered in the caption as well. So just to let you know, I did actually keyword the image beforehand, so I know that I can talk you through this process a little bit more, less clunky than actually doing it live for you. So I've captioned this image generically for now because I don't know exactly what the celebratory event is, but I think it's probably a Jewish wedding. But because I don't know that, I'm going to just hang fire for now and keyword this quite generically. So I've got a sort of basic format of who doing what, where, and if the content is going off to an editorial library, or they're going to be licensed editorially, we might even add the date at the end of a caption. We might put the specific year. If it's travel content and it's really important to know that what time of day it was, because the sun is setting in a certain landmark, and we want to know, we want to verify if it is the sunset or the sunrise, then we can also put that information in caption as well if we've got the space. If we've got a lot of background information about a building, for example, architectural photographers often put the name of the architect or the designer, or they might want to put the year dates, or maybe even the construction company, and those kind of things. They can go in description, which we may use a completely different field for that. But again, it would depend on where the content is being distributed. If it's an editorial library or a creative library, they will have guidelines that we implement and know exactly which metadata fields we need and how to put the information in those fields. So going back to the caption, the format is quite straightforward. We're looking for good syntax, good punctuation, obviously good grammar, and keywords similarly contain the most relevant and prominent terms that we would have in caption. So we're going to include keywords, woman, we're going to include celebratory event or celebration, or the specific event. If it turns out to be a wedding, obviously that triggers off a whole new bunch of keywords. If it's a Jewish wedding, that's another bunch of keywords we want to add in if we know that to be the case. And then obviously in the keywords we're going to put in the location information as well. So have a quick look through these keywords. You'll see there's a couple of more technical keywords at the start here, which may or may not be needed depending on the library. I do know that most of the libraries are now automating the orientation of the image, and this black and white or monochrome colour image may not be necessary. It's just something I need to check at the beginning before starting a job to make sure whether we need to add that or not. If we're not needing to add keywords, there's two reasons why we wouldn't. The first one is to make sure we get enough space to add all the important keywords that we do need to add if we're working to a word limit. But secondly, we don't want to kind of upset the algorithms. We don't want to upset the upload process. And if the upload tool at the agency side doesn't want to see these terms, then obviously we don't want to add them because it might slow things down or it might actually fail on upload. So once we know what we're what we're working with and who we're submitting to, then we can adjust and make these minor tweaks to the keywords as necessary. So we are keywording who is doing what, where, in effect. That accounts for a fair portion of these keywords, but as you go through and read them, when you've got time to do that, when I'm not talking to you, you will see that we've described also something about the prominent figure in this image, this lady here. We've described something about her posture, her expression, her clothing, and from her expression and her posture, we're coming up with ideas about the conceptual side of this image as well. And you can see that there's a variety of keywords that are conceptual, which you wouldn't add into a caption necessarily, because they are things that I am inferring, from the image in its entirety, from every element that we can see and every element that we can infer. But I'm not putting them in caption because I want the caption to remain factual and literal, and I want the keywords to sort of optimise and embellish on that. But the main thing to remember is they do still need to be accurate, they need to be relevant, they need to be customer focused. So if we were to look away from this image now and try and visualise or remember what the image shows and also what you think the concepts are, these are the sort of keywords that picture buyers will be using when they search. And it's a good rule of thumb actually to just pick any random keyword in a set as you're keywording, or at the end of keywording an image, let's say confidence here, and just ask yourself, if a picture buyer searched on confidence on a picture library site, would they be pleased to see this image? Hopefully you would agree that the keywords I've added are useful for picture buyers who are searching on that specific term. You might have queries about some of them. For example, why have I added wearing? And the keyword wearing is usually added where the thing that is prominent is being worn. So rather than a wedding dress hanging on a coat hanger or on a mannequin in a bridal shop, this image shows a woman wearing the dress or the wedding dress, and the wearing element is really important because she is the main focus of the image. Again, mouth open, it's not a headshot with a really large mouth. It's not the main focus of the image, but actually the composition here, I would argue, the framing of the contrast of this white billowing fabric and this kind of background of a crowd of people. I think the mouth almost, the eye is drawn to her face and this toothy smile and this joyful expression. I think if you were looking for somebody, really celebrating a life event, mouth open, full of vitality and energy, then this would be a good search result. So yeah, have a look through the keywords and see what you think, and let me know if you've got questions about those. I think that's probably as far as I would want to go in this particular recording. But I would be interested to get your feedback on this process and answer any questions that you might have. If you're curious to know why things aren't added or why things are added, or how you would go about doing your own images. I mean, maybe your images are very different to this. Maybe your images are travel shots and shots of building exteriors and landmarks, or lifestyle shots, animals. We can look at those individually if you would be interested in going through this process again. So just keep me posted, hit me with your feedback, and hopefully you found this helpful in some way.